Thank you for joining Effortless Attraction. My name is Evelyn McAleer. I'm the author of A Life You Want, Effortless, and The Woman's Journey. I'm a life coach, business mentor, and inspirational speaker. And my greatest value is making a difference in people's lives. So I hope through these podcasts, I can make a difference to your life.
Effortless Attraction Podcast is sponsored by Maria Young Wellbeing, wellness mentor and creator of Infusion, a platform designed to inspire health, wealth, abundance, and a life lived with purpose. Maria conducts events, trainings, and the blending of practical tools for lasting change. Her mission is simple: to help you live well and rise strong. You can explore more at www.mariayoungwellbeing.co.uk or infusion.mn.co.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another Effortless Attraction podcast. Well, on today's episode of Effortless Attraction, I'm joined by the incredible Karl Anthony. Karl is a professional hypnotist with a wealth of experience, having carried out thousands of successful sessions that have led to truly life-changing results. Based in Drogheda, County Louth, he runs his full-time practice at the Drogheda Medical Centre, working alongside Dr. Oliver Lynn and his team. Karl's passion for hypnosis extends beyond his clinic. He has also performed stage shows for charities and fundraisers, showing just how powerful and fascinating the mind can be. With his unique approach, people experience hypnosis in a way that creates lasting transformation and successful change. So, in this conversation, we'll dive into Karl's work, his passion, and how he helps people unlock the power of their mind. Look into my eyes.
Yeah, I am looking already.
Karl, you're most welcome today.
Thank you, Evelyn. It's a pleasure to be here. It really, really is.
I am fascinated with everything about the mind.
Yes.
I thought of this beforehand. No one has actually ever saw the mind.
No.
What is the mind?
Well, there's a great question, and on a daily basis here, I'm actually in my medical clinic here at the moment, sitting here just waiting for a client later on. And, it's an incredible thing. Everybody I see that comes in to see me, whether it's for panic or anxiety or addiction, the biggest challenge they have is not what they're coming in with, it's not understanding how their mind works. That's the biggest problem. It's like, Evelyn, if you have a problem with your car engine, I'm sure you're not a mechanic, so you're going to have to give it to somebody to fix it for you. And there's a big problem with that, because if we don't have the information, we're sort of prisoners to the outside, treatments that are available. And it really should be taught as a subject in school, every class from primary upwards, about the human mind, how it works, how our emotions work, how our relationships with others kind of affect us or not, based on our own perception of reality that we're in. So the mind is an incredible, nobody can really put their finger on and say what it is. It's a miracle if you ask me. We do know it's electrical, and we also know too that every emotion we have is an electrical frequency. And the body will resonate at certain frequencies. So for instance, if you have anxiety, well, that electricity is coming out at a frequency that might cause a knot in your stomach, palpitations, heartbeat, and so on. When we feel loved by somebody, we get a frequency of all mushy. And then we get a frequency of stress, when you have lots of things coming at you, paying the bills, maybe falling out with your partner, family, challenging you with certain things. Well, then that frequency is just stress where the body stiffens up. So my best way to explain it to you is it's an electrical experience, and many years ago I would have snubbed at that idea, but I have to admit I've done probably 16,000 clinical sessions in my life, and nobody can operate on the human mind and cut out a lump of anxiety. Nobody can photograph it, and nobody can weigh it. so,
Yeah.
so it's not matter. It's energy.
Yeah.
And so that's probably my best way of my understanding of it anyway.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Do you know, I was thinking beforehand as well, all these thoughts that come into my mind, my brain, wherever. I remember reading once upon a time, I don't believe I made this up, that mind over matter, that religion said to the scientists, we'll deal with the mind, you sort out the matter.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
is it amazing that they hold control of it? You talked about anxiety and different feelings that we create. And I've heard people say, I'm a natural worrier.
Yeah.
No such
And
thing.
No, you have to learn to be a worrier. I mean, the day you're born, you're a blank disk. You're like a hard drive in a computer that hasn't had a keystroke on it yet. You have an operating system, which is your heartbeat and your breathing. It's automatic, it comes from the unconscious mind. So you're nodding your head right now, Evelyn, and that's an automatic function. You're not thinking about that. So we have an operating system, just like a computer. So right now, I'm alive. And right now, I'm doing this through a Mac, which I couldn't see you unless there was life in the computer, which is the operating system. But then above that, we have a hard drive. So think about this, the day you're born, you have a hard drive that starts recording your life 24/7, never stops till the day you die. Okay. And the first 6, 7 years of everybody's life is the most suggestible time. And it's a survival thing because if you go back 5,000 years ago and you lived in the wild, your survival needs compared to today, turning on the oil and the heating and putting something in the microwave are much different. Got to get food every day. You got to survive weather. You got to survive different, maybe challenge with different tribes or different people who are probably looking to take your land or whatever it is. So it's more likely though if you are born into a house where somebody's a worrier, like your mother is, oh, don't do this. Oh my God, what are you doing? We can be conditioned to worry, but also we can have a bad experience too. If you fall down the stairs at 2 years of age, or if you nearly drown in a swimming pool, the mind would be more likely to look out for danger. It's a protective mind, and I heard a great thing yesterday. We're not designed to be happy all the time. We're designed to survive all the time. And that's a fact. So when you look at society and people being afraid of other people's opinions, why do you think that is? Because of rejection. And if you're in a herd of sheep in a field and they all turn around and say, we don't want you in this field anymore with us, your sort of survival is at stake. So we all have that sort of fear of being rejected and so on. It's a massive one, stops people wanting to speak in public and sing in public and so on, and be themselves really.
Yeah.
So, or sort of safer behind the mask and so on. So, no, you have to, we're born with two anxieties. One is the fear of loud sounds, and the other is the fear of heights. But every other anxiety you have, whether it's a fear of confrontation, whether it's a fear of water, a fear of needles, it has to be a learned uh, anxiety. It
Behavior.
has to be, yeah, it has to be experienced so that we now protect ourselves from doing it again.
Okay. Well, there you've just brought up one, and this was a conversation that came up with a few to this week here in the house. The fear of confrontation, where I seen that word confrontation. I don't see it. I didn't see it as confrontation. I saw it as more communication. For me, the word confrontation is results in an argument. Is there a difference there? And could you perhaps elaborate a wee bit why people are afraid of that? Is it something they have experienced in their past?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything, as I say, we're not designed to be happy all the time. We're designed to live and survive all the time. And although we live in a modern world, the human mind is no different than it was 10,000 years ago. It still has the same needs to keep us alive. So, put it this way, if you go back 5,000 years ago and you live in a cave and you had a mother and father, if without those two people, you are dead. You can't walk, you can't talk, you can't do anything. You can't, you're just going to sit there and be eaten by somebody or just, die. So if the two people in the cave are fighting all the time, the provider and the protector, and then one of them walks out, well, now your survival is now questioned. If the father walks out, the mother and father are arguing every day in the cave, and next of all the father says, I'm out of here, I'm going to a different cave, right? And he doesn't come back. Well, now your survival is, it's much more at risk. And vice versa, if the mother, the nurturer and the protector, if she does the same, and you can have a lot of this from, as I say, the first 7 years of life, every child's life is the golden time where we believe in Santa Claus, we believe in tooth fairies, we believe in anything, but we also have an attachment to our parents. Now, a lot of parents are so damaged by their childhoods and their trauma, they can't give us what they need. They can't hug us. They can't tell us every day we're amazing and we're beautiful and everything I've ever dreamed of. And they're now bringing us up in their trauma. So my mother would have been an awful warrior. But when you go back to her childhood, it was rightly so. She was an orphan by the age of 11. And you had horrible things happening in this country at the time, with different things happening and stuff like that. Very tough time. So she grew up in a world where you had to worry every day. But till the day she died, she was a warrior. So worrying, y- you know, people say I'm a born worrier, and I smile and go, no, you're not. You're born perfect, but you had to learn to worry. So a
Yeah.
lot of worry is like 99% of what you worry about will never actually come true. But worrying is a way of analyzing every possible scenario that you might encounter that could be a threat. It always comes back to survival, you see. It always comes back to a threat.
A lot of people that I speak with, one of their biggest worry is financial worries.
Yeah.
So, and if they had X amount of pounds in the bank, how do we come over worrying about money and seeing the bank balance as it is?
Well, I'll give you a fantastic example of that. I had a lady in many years ago. She stands out in my mind. You know, she's from Slane here in County Meath, just down the road from me. Lovely girl, and she was in for weight loss. So she'd a good bit of weight to lose, you know. And when I work with people with weight loss, you know, it's not just, you know, reduce your calories. It's always the emotional side of weight loss. So, you know, so a lot of people carrying 4 or 5 stone of weight, it's because of an emptiness inside and the attempt to fulfill with food, you know, distraction, disassociation, and soothing and reward. Over time, the penalty is you put on weight and you have to buy bigger clothes. Okay, so everybody has an addiction. Some people have drank a bottle of wine last night and they'll drink another one tonight. It's not as obvious as carrying 5 stone of weight, but everybody has some addiction. So this lady, anyway, when she was in for the weight loss and all that, she said to me, Carl, I shop twice a week. And I said, well, do you need to buy food twice a week? She says, no. She says, causing massive problems at home. You know, the husband, he's like, what are you doing? We don't need all this food, you know. But after some investigation with her, it turns out that in hypnosis we could regress her back to the very first time she felt that she'd never have enough, right? And she was 5 years of age, and her father just come in from Tara Mines, and he basically sat in at the kitchen table with the family, crying his eyes out, saying that he's lost his job. And in that moment, her whole survival was threatened. She's 5 years of age. She hasn't got a logical mind yet. She hasn't got an analytical mind. She just has an emotional mind. So her mind took that as we're going to starve. We're going to lose everything. So when she grew up and had her own money, her subconscious mind was focused on always having enough. So she'd say, if I open the cupboards of the press, the food will come out right out to the door. You know, and not just a can of beans, but 10 cans of beans. So her mind was constantly looking to always make sure she'd never not be in a situation where she doesn't have enough.
Yeah. But say the next of worrying for that you have enough to pay your electric bill, your rates, your
Yeah,
mortgage, your
yeah, yeah. And
is
that can
this
come.
something obviously again we've learned from parents?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because I come from a family. I'm from Finglas in Dublin originally. You know, I was born in my bedroom in a council house, and we had nothing. And I mean, we had nothing. You know, we had a bath, didn't have a shower. I used to wet the bed, and you know, it's horrific. I was going to the Christian Brothers in Dublin, and I was traumatized at 4 years of age by a Christian brother. I was beaten stupid, and I soiled myself in front of the whole class. And I ended up with social anxiety for 20 odd years. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't be around people. I had nothing to say. I had no value in me. Led to addiction and everything, so it did. But because we had nothing, you know, and every penny was counted, you know, and you got 3 meals a day, if you were lucky, it stands out in my mind. I remember a period where I think we had macaroni and cheese for about 3 weeks solid. So whatever was going on with the parents at the time, there was no money. And I'm very good with money. I spend it, but I don't spend it. You know, I don't waste money.
Yeah.
I'm always making sure there's enough. But
Yeah.
I've always done that in my life. I've
Yeah.
always made sure that okay, this is what I need to get through this month, but there's a surplus there just in case something goes wrong, you know. So, but you could say the same then if you're born into a family full of wealth, you know, where you had everything you ever wanted. Well, then you don't really value anything, you know. Money's nothing, you know. So you
Yeah.
could say the same thing. So, but you have to remember too, not every child in the same situation will end up with the same trauma. So, because of perception, like I could stand on the beach beside you and we're both looking at the same view and you go, it's beautiful. And I go, it's okay. My sunglasses are dirty, yours are clean. So, the perception of our reality depends on the emotional state we're in.
Yeah.
So, if you've been damaged and you've been hurt and there's a lot of hurt and anger in you, you're not going to see the world the same way as somebody who's felt love.
Well, then that leads us on to your treatment, then the hypnosis.
Yeah.
So you're practicing there in Drogheda. You have then people coming in for hypnosis.
Yeah.
Is this, well, you mentioned one there now about weight loss.
Yeah.
What else are people looking assistance for?
Anything that will, excuse me, anything that will create challenges for us in the physical world through emotion. So, what does that mean? I had a chap in here yesterday from Oma, believe it or not. and he's going on a plane on the, well, he's not going on a plane. Wasn't going on the plane on the 26th, and now he is. So he came down with a fear of flying. Okay.
Yes.
And it's massive, it's a family all going off. There's a massive celebration happening, and he couldn't go, and they're all giving out to him because they don't understand that his mind is trying to protect him from getting on the plane.
Of course.
But more times than not, fear of flying is not about the plane or the height. It's a fear of not being able to get off it, fear of being trapped in a situation that something bad might happen. So basically, he came in yesterday for his first visit, 3 hours, and in that session, we could go back to the very first time in his life he felt that same feeling. And he was 3 years of age on a boat, and it was out somewhere in some lock up north. And I don't know whether the father had him in the boat, but at 3 years of age, he had a panic attack because he didn't have the logic and the rational mind to say that everything will be okay. He felt that he's going to die. And, it was re-triggered later on, excuse me, through a family member's sickness, very close to him. Somebody got really sick, and the chances are the person was going to make it. So now he went into another state of trauma, which triggered the anxiety about feeling trapped in situations. And it wasn't just on the plane, if he's driving to Dublin, he'd have to drive the car. And his wife even said to him, if you were flying the plane, you'd be fine. But the fact that you're not flying it, you're panicking. And it's just so I had that. And then the session after that was for cocaine addiction, then weight loss, so whatever comes from the mind that's causing you problems in your life or your relationships. Yeah, a lot of work I would do, a lot of anger release and forgiveness for the childhood years, for the people
Yeah.
who damage us most. Now, there's a massive difference between doing that in a church, or a lot of people will, so you say you've been hurt by somebody, and a month later you turn around and go, "I forgive you." That has changed nothing, because what's happened is the damage they caused you back then, the impact on your emotional mind, it's still there. You're just deciding to carry the pain, but you assume you're over it by going, "I forgive you." In order to forgive emotional pain, you have to do it from an emotional mind, and you have to do that through a hypnotic experience, you see, because we can't express ourselves in the logical world. We can express ourselves in the emotional world. So I would have a lot of people
Is
in.
that, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
So hypnosis is to take you back to the emotion.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So the hard drive. So the subconscious mind is your hard drive. That's where all your emotions come from, your feelings, your habits, your beliefs, your long-term memory, and it's your protective. The logical mind, which starts around the age of 6 or 7, is rational, logical, analytical. It's where willpower comes from, and short-term memory. But you have short-term memory, short-term willpower, short-term analysis, short-term logic, short-term reason. The emotion mind is long-term because time doesn't exist in emotion. It only exists in logic.
That's a very good thing. Just repeat that one more
Yeah.
time a bit
Okay.
slower.
So,
That time
so
only
yeah.
exists.
So somebody says, if somebody's been traumatized by, say they had a breakup 5 years ago, or somebody cheated on them 10 years ago, and they say to you, "I'm over that." I smile and I go, "No, you are that." You cannot forgive yourself. So time does not exist in the emotional world. And a great example of that is when you sit down with a friend of yours and start getting engrossed in conversation, 3 hours can go like that. You have no
Yeah.
idea what time it is. But
Yeah.
when you go into an office on Monday morning and you look at that clock, you're in a logical world.
So we're in two different states. One is
Yeah.
emotional, where we're maybe reminiscing about good times and talking. That's all emotion.
Yeah.
Then you're in a different mindset. Then when you're in business, when you work, you're now in logical.
Yeah. Well, you're still like you're in a logical because you're an accountant, or maybe you're a mechanic, or maybe you're doing some sort of job. So you have a role to play in that job, and you're being monitored by what you're doing. Doesn't mean you won't feel emotion going, "I hate this. I want to be out of this job. I want to go home at 5 o'clock, have a glass of wine." Doesn't mean that. What it means is that whenever do you know, remember years ago when the electricity would be cut off for the night and wouldn't be back on until the next day, and everybody sat around the table and just connected again. That was the most beautiful experiences of most people's lives, where the family unit connected. Excuse me. So when we're in emotion, when we're, and this is why we like alcohol, because it pushes the conscious mind away temporarily, and it lets us become a child again. We do stupid things. We can laugh. We can jump around, make
And
funny faces.
but also through the alcohol, I've heard there's a lot of anger.
Yeah,
You'd nearly think it venom. There's stuff that's stored there that comes out.
yeah. Because the alcohol is pacifying the conscious mind, it's pushing it to one side. And therefore, what starts out as innocent enough, having 3, 4 points, is fine. Then 7 or 8 points later on, somebody might say something and the other person takes it up wrong, and now they offload years of unresolved arguments they've had in that relationship. I mean, they've fallen out 10 times that year and they won't speak for a day or two and then they start speaking again, but they've never resolved the issue, you see. And what happens is with the alcohol, then somebody says something, the other person takes it the wrong way, and bang, it all comes out, you know. So,
Here's a question, just when you
yeah,
mentioned about emotion, and it's only my observation, and
yeah,
absolutely no offense taken by whatever
yeah,
the what your
mm,
analysis of the answer is. When you just thought about emotional trauma from relationships, or people coming up with something that happened 5 years ago in a relationship,
yeah.
is the woman better holding on to it than the man?
I would say it's I would see more ladies than men, put it that way. Okay,
Yeah,
I'd say it's probably 70-30, so 70% female, and men are a lot better than they were, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, probably 10%. So, but I put it this way, I chap in here as a second session for addiction cocaine, flying. He hasn't touched it in weeks, you know. But all the reason he has addiction is his mother and father split up when he was three, you know. And that's what I'm talking about, you know. Another chap in from Coolock recently who's 7 years of age walked into a room and his father was hanging from a rope. I mean, this is all horrific trauma that the child has been through. And what it does is it breaks us emotionally, it takes away our emotional value. And here's the thing to say to you, okay, everybody has an addiction, Evelyn. Okay, some are illegal and some are legal. Like I would never eat McDonald's, but I could go there right now and order 10 cheeseburgers and eat them. No one's going to arrest me for that. Right? They did have somebody who'll drink too much last night and then they get stopped at a checkpoint to be arrested. Now, addicts are not bad people. They're hurt people.
yeah,
They, and the system criminalizes them and demonizes them into, you got an illness or you're a criminal. And that's not true. Addicts can do bad things to continue an addiction, but they're good people. They're just broken and hurt people inside. And this is what
yeah,
I love about that world is the addict is soothing the child. The 30-year-old alcoholic is soothing the child.
yeah,
The heroin addict is soothing the child. Everybody's soothing the child. The lady eating far too much food and carrying 6 stone of weight is soothing the child. And until you go back and give that child peace and you let it express itself and get closure, it'll always be an issue, you see.
yeah. So here, when we're talking about addiction too, and yes, as you're saying, there's the legal, there's the illegal, there's the ones that are more noticeable than others. Social media,
Yeah,
scrolling on phones has to be an addiction.
it's the worst of them all. And and the problem with it is because the parents are addicted to their addictions, which could be too much wine, food, and social media. What's happened is the child isn't getting in the first 6, 7 years the attachment and the bonding from the mother. And it's not, I'm not blaming them because more likely the mother never got it, right? So what's happening now is the child is getting a tablet at 2 years of age, 3 years of age, and now their whole reality is mechanical. It's not emotional. And that is building an absolute tsunami of addiction, trauma, mental illness. Like we have seen nothing like what's coming.
Yeah,
If you look at it, we all know this now. You ask most teenagers a question, they can't answer it. They can't think. They have no attention span. They can't sit and they just constantly have to have some new, what's the word, peptide hit from stimulus. They have to be constantly stimulated. And, so spending 10 hours on a PlayStation and a lot of times, when you've got a 3-year-old looking at the mother and all the 3-year-old wants to be picked up and be loved and the mother's scrolling up and down going, yeah, 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 here. And they throw them a tablet. And the other side of society is a bit weird, if you ask me. It's like we're all guilty unknowingly of causing addiction in our children from the first 6 months and by giving them a soother. So the soother for me is the biggest crime of all. Like, I mean, when a child cries at night, what do? We give them a fake plastic thing that represents the mother's breast, the nipple, which creates a bonding. It creates an artificial feeling of security, right? And then the child gets too hot, upset, they fall, they bang their head. We constantly give them a soother. And what's happening is we're now conditioning that child in their emotional state that when in life, when things don't go right for you, you need to soothe them something. And
mm,
that's a massive issue, it really,
mm,
really is. I've seen children with security blankets sucking on them until they're like 20, 25, 30. I have them in here sometimes. They can't exist without having this piece of blanket that size.
yeah.
And
I often I want to get on to some of your in a wee bit your shows and stuff, but
yeah,
I am fascinated with the mind, and even as a human race, like I'll sit and think here how even in a space of time of being alive here myself that things have changed, and I often question, are we becoming a more lazy race? Once upon a time, we used to have to get up and switch and use this thing. There was no remote control, actually. You push the button. I said the other day, I said, there's an argument when it's somebody's turn to empty the dishwasher. Like the dishwasher's now washing all the dishes, and now there's an argument. Everything then is instant. If you go on to Amazon, you go on to any of those eating places, it's delivered to you. You don't have to do anything.
no,
That is a big concerning thing when I think of how lazy the human race is becoming, and we're becoming actually dependent and perhaps addicted
yeah.
because then you remove all of those things, take away Amazon, take away on them eating places, take if somebody had to get up and switch the TV over, imagine what would happen.
Well, it's a beautiful thing you just said. So, do you ever see that image of evolution where it's like the ape and the monkey and they're sort of on their knees and they sort of stand up over time and next of all they turn into the human? Do you ever see
Hmm.
that image? It's like a
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, imagine that picture now and the human turns around and starts walking back the other way.
yeah,
We're stopping evolution, you know,
yeah,
and what's happening is we're allowing technology to destroy us. Basically, I remember my father saying probably 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and I thought he was crazy, you know. Like, most times I thought he was crazy anyway, but this really took the biscuit when he said this to me. Because I think it was around the time of the remote control, and he didn't like it, you know. And I think he's saying, you know, eventually society will get to a point where you just have to be a blob sitting on on a chair and don't have to
yeah.
do anything. And he's right, you know, because now you can clap twice and the lights will come on. Now you can go open the door and you can say close the curtains and it will happen. So what's happening is we're becoming imprisoned by technology. If you're a year old, you know your mother's voice, that vibration, you know her smell. You feel her presence. And when she's gone for 10, 12 hours a day and you're a year too old, it's constant abandonment. It's constant, you know, and being brought up by a stranger and that child will have no foundation, you know.
And
Like,
that for women that are out working now and hearing that, they will, there's a guilt. There's
absolutely.
a
And it's not their
guilt of
fault.
having
Yeah.
to go out that, but also, do you know what? We need to go out and work for our own sanity as well, because I'm
Yeah.
quite sure a lot of mothers say, I
Yeah.
can't be at home all the time.
But that's true. But the first 7 years of every child's life, both parents should be there. But society won't let that happen. So in my day growing up, my father worked. My mother didn't have to because we could afford. Well, we didn't have much, but we could afford. He had a car, but we could live life on one salary. Now you can't. So the whole point of it is that us being more advanced civilization, we've gone backwards because now both parents jump up in the morning, they go separate directions, and that child either goes to a childminder after school, not good, and no disrespect to childminders. And this is not the parents' fault for handing their child over at 7 o'clock in the morning and pick them up 12 hours later. It's not their fault. It's society's, it's the governments of the world's fault for using our money, the trillions that we've made and generated, to build a society where we don't actually have time to be with
Yeah.
our family and build a
Yeah,
foundation.
and
Yeah.
that's something I see here. We do have quality time because when people come here, they're in holiday mode. So we get quality time.
Yeah.
And my friend's over here at the moment, and we were up at a little fiesta here, and he says, Evelyn, it's like Ireland 60 years ago. And I said, that's why we love it. The hall is like a wee parochial hall that there would have been about, in every parish and their wee fiesta. And here's something he noticed. He says nobody has their phones out. I
No.
says exactly because they're having that thing called conversation, and it's embarrassing. Then when we went to a restaurant, I suppose the next day, and then there were different, not Spanish, but other people. I'm not to name what country they're from,
Yeah. Yeah. But
but they're out with phones, and I get embarrassed to take mine out then because I don't want to be like that. I want
yeah.
to, if I'm here with someone, those people that were at the fiesta the other night, sitting having conversation with no mobile phones out, and then the following night in the company of people from another country that all have their phones out. Is that true? Their mindset from their different realm.
It's probably language as well, you know. It's probably, you know, like I mean, it's like monkeys in a different cave sort of thing, you know. If you have all the locals, that's different, you know. Like I'm heading to Vietnam on the last week of October, and I do it every few years. So I spend 10 days in the North Vietnamese jungle on a motorbike. So just going around, and there's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So for 10, 12 hours a day, you're on a motorbike. I've been on them all my life, and for me, that's my mental health. What's the word? It's like it's my way of dealing with all of this stuff, and as well as dealing with, I'm very good at not taking stuff home with me. But you know, when you're working in a clinic like this and you're seeing, I mean, heartbreaking people, you know, like there's nothing worse than a child who's grown up to have maybe 5 stone of weight on, and then you realize that her mother never once told her she loved her or hugged her, but her son, oh, she would die for her son, but her daughter, no, no. And, you know, but that comes down to the, you know, it happens in a lot of farms around, you know, going back to in the day where the son was like, oh, he'll, you know, inherit the farm and keep the business going, where the daughter was like, no, you're not a son. It's like, you're not a boy, like, and, you know, and, but it's just going back to their parents' own experience too. But my whole point is, you know, the saddest thing I've ever seen is I was in Vietnam 7 years ago, and when I say you're in rural Vietnam, I mean I didn't see a knife and fork for 10 days. You know, we were eating with chopsticks. You didn't see. I went in a restaurant. It was all people making food for you. It was incredible. But what I did notice in certain parts was in these rural areas that there was you would go through a small town, you know, full of muck, and there'd be like mothers on phones because they gave phones out free.
Oh,
And they're giving phones out free all around Vietnam because they all want them in the same world we're in. And it was heartbreaking, you know, because there's no time when you're with people, there's no time, you know, and we don't get happiness from mechanical devices. That's why people will buy a new house and then it doesn't do it for them. You know, they buy a new car and then 6 months later it's just a car. But when you get emotional value from somebody, it lasts you a lifetime. When somebody says something to you and you know they mean it and it makes you feel incredible inside, you'll remember that till the day you die. I had a girl in here 20 years of age last week, and her whole life is constantly panicking about dying. Health,
panicking
health,
about dying.
yeah, health anxiety. So she might get a twitch in her neck. Next of all, oh my God, it's a lump. I got cancer.
Is that what we call a hypochondriac?
Yes, but there was a reason for it. You know, she had meningitis when she was 2.
Right.
So through a bit of stress that she went through, I think she had something. She had to go into hospital to have something checked. But when she had meningitis at 2, she nearly died. But she's in hospital for 2 weeks away from her parents, her cave. So when she got, I can't remember what triggered it, but I think around 18, 17 or 18, she had, oh, appendix or something like that, right? And because she had something, you know, she felt the pain of it, had to have it out. That now triggered the anxiety from the 2-year-old, you see.
Mm,
And this girl, really beautiful girl, very rational, very intelligent, but that's nothing to do with survival. You know, you could have survival doesn't do logic, it doesn't do reason, it just does emotions.
yeah.
One thing I'd like to say to your listeners is this, you know, everybody thinks that they can't remember all their childhood, right? And I go, okay. If you just go into your phone, and I'm not asking you to do it, I'm just saying later on, go into your phone and look at how many photographs you have stored on it and ask, can you tell me every one of them? No. You could probably tell me 20 photographs, 30 photographs maximum that you have on your phone, but they're all there. And all our life experiences, every one of them, is all in long-term memory.
Oh,
They're all there. So that's why
okay.
you might hear a song and it'll bring up an emotion. You know, you might have had your heart broken at 14, and whenever you hear that song, you feel that emotional pain still. Or if you ask somebody did like Christmas and they go, I hate Christmas, that tells you, well, at Christmas time in their house, it wasn't a good time for them.
Mm,
If they say, I love Christmas, so we're constantly responding back to
yeah.
files in
Yeah.
emotion, you see, you know.
Yeah.
Even the tone of voice evident. You hear his tone of voice and you instantly don't like the person. That can sort of resonate back to maybe a teacher or a parent or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We'll have
It
to do a
is.
part 2 someday.
Oh, I know, because I need to get off. I just, because the next question will go, oh, well, what about this? And then I forget I'm doing a podcast and I think I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
sitting here
But they're the best ones, I think.
having a chat.
Just having a chat,
I
yeah.
I will put your details in the description below. If you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, all the website or social medias will be in the description down below.
Fantastic, yeah.
If you're also listening on Spotify, there's a wee comment section. I'm always interested to hear a bit of feedback, what people think of the
I'd
show.
love to. The best way to get me would be on WhatsApp, a message. And
Well, I'll put that in the
Even if you put
description
my
below.
number in there, Evelyn, that'd be fantastic. Just send me a message on WhatsApp and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening today. And Carol, thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, and we will chat very soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.